Historically speaking, Duke basketball continues to cement itself as one of the absolute greatest basketball programs in the entire country. Let's dance in the Final Four this weekend, shall we?
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us today on Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. As Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics, and we talk a whole lot about Duke men's basketball, who's going back to the Final Four this weekend. This time it's being played in San Antonio. All 4 1 seeds will be at the Final Four, and Duke is one of them. Very excited to break all the matchups down and so much more with our very good friend Brian Horace at Duke Blogger on social media. DukeBlogger.com is a great thing for you to go check out and support. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Go ahead and like all these videos that you see from us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and start spreading the word about Locked On Blue Devils. We're here with you every single day, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So without further ado, excited to bring him on into the program. The aforementioned Brian Horace is back with us. Good to see you, man. We were just talking, and it feels so much better that we get to focus on Duke basketball still playing this time of year, as opposed to kind of sitting there and thinking about the transfer portal, who's coming back, who's declaring for the draft, all those various factors. I'm glad we got basketball to watch this weekend.
Yeah, man, it's always nice to still be dancing for sure. Much rather be talking about this.
Without a doubt. Here we are, Duke going to their 18th Final Four in school history, their first under head coach Jon Scheyer in just his third year. I'm amazed at what he's been able to do so far to start his tenure as Duke's head coach. 1 win shy of having 90 wins in his first 3 years, which would set the record and break a tie. And for Jon Scheyer to even be in that conversation, to have already claimed 1 Final Four appearance, man, we're off and running.
It's insane, how well he's done. And it all starts with, the transition, having that set transition, the succession, and, a schedule for everything. And honestly, just him being a savant, a real student of the game who is, pushing the envelope in terms of what you can do with a young team.
Historically speaking, looking at this Duke basketball program now with 18 Final Four appearances, they're out of a tie for third with Kentucky and Kansas. They now stand alone. North Carolina, those guys in Chapel Hill, we still got to track them down, as we've got a visual here on the screen for folks that March Madness from the NCAA provided. 21 appearances for the Tar Heels, followed by 19 for UCLA in the Final Four, 18 for Duke, and then Kentucky and Kansas both with 17 Final Four appearances between them. I love that no matter who the coach is, it's not just Jon Scheyer and Mike Krzyzewski that were able to take the squad to the Final Four. Coach Foster, Coach Butt, some of the guys before even Coach K were there, helped kind of establish what this Duke program is, and it's great to see Duke kind of getting back atop the college basketball world, and hopefully we're able to do that officially by claiming 2 more wins in San Antonio.
That's the hope. A lot of people think that it all started with K, but he kicked in a lot of doors in terms of winning those championships. But the stage was set long before he got there, and we got Scheyer here continuing it, and hopefully a few days from now we'll be celebrating a little bit more.
In your eyes, was there ever a world or never a scenario in which Duke wouldn't be considered one of the premier programs in the sport, or because of what they've done historically, they're always going to get to be there?
There's just something different about Duke, and I think to have done what they've done in a relatively short period of time compared to the other schools, I think shows you something is brewing there. It has been brewing, and with the onset of different things in college basketball, be it NIL, social media, everything, they've been ahead of the curve, and I think that's going to keep happening. I think that's just the way they're built.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at UCLA, one ahead of Duke right now. And, of course, their last Final Four appearance was 2021, but before that it was 2008. And yet they're always still considered a part of that conversation. They've got the most national titles of any school out there with 11. Thanks to John Wooden for being able to do what he was able to do over all of those years. But now for Duke, there's an opportunity to go ahead and win a national championship in yet another decade. They're trying to jump back into that conversation with UConn, actually, who's now surpassed Duke in the total of national titles, but able to claim a title in the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s and now in the 2020s. That's what Duke's looking to pursue this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. It's about that time. And, I think Scheyer has done, an amazing job of just, upholding and even pushing the standard a little bit. I mean, to have done this in this first 3 years is just insane. I can't think of many coaches who have had that sort of impact on a school that quickly. People are going to say that it was an inherited, thing, but, these are all guys Jon recruited. This is his offense. This is his defense. So, he's putting a stamp on college basketball, and he's doing it in a hurry.
Yeah, even the school that's got the most Final Four appearances all time in North Carolina was able to go to a national championship game in Hubert Davis's first season after beating Duke in the Final Four. But it's not like he carried that over into the following years. It's not like he's the one 3 years in that's got this opportunity to set the record for most wins within your first three seasons as a head coach. And so what he's been able to do in Durham, talking about Jon Scheyer specifically, is nothing short of amazing. We hope it continues. It was fun earlier in the week getting to watch Cam Boozer win co-MVP honors from the McDonald's All-American game. They're playing knockout, and Nicholas Aminia is the one that's ending up winning the game from his outside shooting and whatnot. So it feels like, hey, we're going to be okay, even going into next season. I want to focus and win these games right now, but he's already establishing kind of the protocol in place to keep this program running.
Yeah, he's got his rhythm now, and that's what you want to see. It's not just getting to the mountaintop. It's sort of, keeping yourself ascended and continuing to, to push the envelope, push that graph even higher, for sure.
The one big thing for Duke to win a national title this weekend with 2 wins over Houston and then whoever wins the Auburn and Florida game, Brian, when you look at that, if there's one kind of big area of the game, a player, like what's that one big thought for you? Before we get into some specifics for Duke fans out there, what's the one thing they need to do to kind of take care of business this weekend?
It's going to be toughness. I think whoever you end up playing is going to be a tough, seasoned veteran team. So I think, starting with Houston,
I like that.
It's going to be toughness, and toughness, it ends up sort of filtering out into a lot of different areas of the game. One being taking care of the basketball, being strong with the ball, being tough on the boards. All of that breaks down into just being tough.
Our Duke Blue Devils trying to win a national title, trying to knock off Houston first and foremost. We won't get too far ahead of ourselves. That's the game next up on the table for Duke. We'll continue to break that game down with our pal Brian Horace after we take our first break here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late, watching all these NCAA tournament games or other sporting events, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to pick up and keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching all this tournament action, and 5 Hour Energy helps me keep up with the next day. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and deliver it right to your door. Do you need one now? Well, go and grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. 5 Hour Energy is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, Brian Horace is here with us. We're talking Duke basketball toughness. I love how you laid it out when you look at this Duke team going into the Final Four matchup with Houston. I want to start, though, with the 20-point Elite Eight win over Alabama. I think toughness prevailed in that meeting even. When you look at a team that's coming off setting an NCAA tournament record, everyone is talking about the upset potential that they've got because of the great equalizer and the three-point shot and how many of them they're going to take and the tempo. And Nate Oates is just this next-level coach. All of this noise out there. And yet the tougher team was able to limit an Alabama squad to just 8 3-point makes on 25% shooting from the outside, plus 11 in the rebounding battle, and won by 20, Brian.
Against a very, very seasoned, well-coached, tough old Alabama squad. And that's what you like about this Duke team, that, they may be young, but they don't play young. They play like, a bunch of grizzled veterans out there, and they're not afraid to meet the moment. They weren't afraid of Alabama, who, they made Alabama look real pedestrian, but that's a good team. They're, obviously every team has their weaknesses. Duke was able to exploit Alabama's weakness, which is in terms of size in some areas, but that they made that look very easy, and it really wasn't. That's not a bad team that they beat. That's a team that's competed against Houston and I think won. That's a team that played Auburn. That's an SEC team that's built on toughness. Yeah. But yet Duke was able to out-tough them. So that says a lot.
Yeah, Alabama split those meetings with Auburn. They played it really close to Florida. I mean, they've been tested throughout the course of the season. And here we are. It's an Alabama team that's no longer in the tournament, and Duke, the tougher team on the Elite Eight matchup, is the one that's moving on to the Final Four. I think a lot of it, too, is, you mentioned the youth of this team playing much older than they actually are, not being afraid of the moment and that sort of thing. But they certainly benefit from having Tyrese Proctor in the locker room, the likes of Sion James and Malik Brown, although someone like Sion James, it's funny, he's never played in an NCAA tournament game before arriving in Duke. And then Mason Gillis, who his minutes aren't always there. There are several games in this tournament run where he's had fewer than 10, 12 minutes in a matchup like this. And yet every single huddle, every single timeout, he's one of the very first guys out there on the floor and trying to coach up his teammates. I absolutely love it, Brian.
You love a guy that is willing to sacrifice. He could have gone to any other team and been a starter, for a lot of teams. But he saw the potential, he saw his role, he saw the fit, and he saw the possibility of getting to right where he is right now. And he sacrificed a lot to get there, and that's what you love about Mason Gillis.
So looking at the screen here, we've got teams this season. There are 3 of them in the Final Four. That everybody on their roster does not have a Final Four appearance with the current school that they're at. However, 3 of the teams have a player who's been there previously. Duke has Mason Gillis, who participated in the Final Four with Purdue. Florida has Elijah Martin, who was a part of the FAU Florida Atlantic run from a couple of seasons ago. Then you've got LJ Cryer, who's going to be a big matchup for Duke, for Houston, who won a national championship with Baylor. Now he's going to be taking the floor for Houston in this matchup against Duke. So a couple of different teams here that are going to be able to rely on these guys. And when you look at a player like Elijah Martin and LJ Cryer, they carry big workloads for the squad that they're on.
Without a doubt. I mean, there's obviously many ways to affect a team. One is obviously being a scorer, a defender. But in, Gillis's, in his, particular mode, he is a guy that is a talker. He's a guy that is a connector for Duke. He's a guy that can hit the open shot. He's a guy that comes in and provides a level of toughness when Duke needs it. And, sometimes those are the ones that actually end up being more important because they, obviously Duke has guys, to share the load offensively. They have guys to share the load defensively. By adding this extra layer of toughness, this was a wonderful pickup by Scheyer to really advance this team to another level.
And I've been talking this week, looking at the Houston matchup in particular. I think there's a big opportunity. Connor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated made the point on yesterday's show. This feels like it could be a Mason Gillis game, like an X-Factor Mason Gillis style game because of the size of Houston. They're not running out these big 7-footers. And a lot of their kind of 4 men, when you look at Tugler and Roberts on the inside, 6'8", 6'9", a perfect matchup for someone like Gillis off the bench.
Oh, without a doubt. It's going to help Duke in terms of keeping their bigs out of trouble, possibly, putting Mason in at the 5, perhaps at the 4, perhaps. So, this is definitely a game where he can, draw those guys out of the middle and provide lanes for, Kahn, Cooper, Proctor, whoever to drive to the basket. So, yeah, this could definitely be, and obviously, he can bring rebounding and toughness as well.
Give me something else that jumps out to you about this Houston team in particular as we get set for Saturday's Final Four game.
I mean, obviously their defense. I mean, they are the number 1 defensive team in the country for a reason. They are tough. They board. They jump on loose balls like, it's they're hungry and they're biscuits. I mean, these guys really go at it. And so, Duke's going to have to utilize what they do best, using their size, their length to bother these guys. But honestly, Houston is just a good team, and they shoot well, and they don't shoot a lot of threes, but when they do shoot them, they make them. And I think they're, in the top 4 or 5 in percentage for 3-point shots. And so there's a lot for Duke to game plan for, but I think they have the raw materials to really turn those what looked like advantages for Houston into advantages for Duke.
I'm ready to see how we match up with them, with their defense, to see the different looks that we've got, to see how quickly Duke wants to play pace-wise. This is a Houston team that hasn't given up 80 points the entire season, right? They've only been beaten once in regulation, and that was against Auburn in one of the very first games of the year. So this is a team that really takes pride on the defensive end of the floor. Having said that, Duke has scored at least 85 in every single March Madness game that they've played thus far. Like, our offense is at a totally different level than anybody else that Houston has played has been at.
Yeah, it's going to be strength versus strength. And I think, this game may end up being in the 70s. But, I mean, for me, as long as Duke has 71 and Houston has 70, I'm okay with that.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, because, I mean, look, people are asking me all week, does great offense beat great defense? Does great defense beat great offense? And my answer is, well, what side of the equation is Duke on? Because that's where I want to go, Brian. I want to go back Duke. So yeah, I'm fired up for this one. I think we're going to be in a good spot going into the game. All right, we'll start to wrap up our conversation and talk about a couple of more storylines going into Final Four weekend when Locked On Blue Devils continues here in a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NCAA Tournament Final Four is here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Of these four teams right now, our Duke Blue Devils are the betting favorites to win the whole thing. Go and get in on the action over there at FanDuel this entire week. This line has been moving. It's been something to monitor over there at FanDuel. Duke by 4.5, Duke by 5.5. That's the range we're looking at right now as we speak. A 4.5-point favorite line for your Duke Blue Devils. I love the app. It's easy, it's fast, simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So go ahead and just visit FanDuel.com and get in on all the college hoops action all tournament long. FanDuel is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Yeah, please go and check that out. Bracket Breakdown. I was able to be on one of the most recent episodes there, a partnership with Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels. That was our hosts, Isaac Shade and Andy Patton from the Locked On College Basketball Show. We're running episodes all week over on Locked On College Basketball, getting you set for the Final Four as well. So go check it all out. Let's get back to today's show. All right, Final Four time. Duke getting set to take on Houston as the Blue Devils are in it for the 18th time in school history, the first time under head coach Jon Scheyer, and the world is going to be talking a whole lot about Mr. Cooper Flagg, and rightfully so going into this weekend, Brian.
Yeah, I can't believe at most we have 2 games left with the young man. He's been a revelation for Duke. He, has been everything that we wanted and more. I mean, great kid, great family, amazing on the court, and he's done whatever he's asked to do with no ego about it. I mean, he's just been, player of the year.
Has he surpassed Zion Williamson when you look at their freshman seasons?
I think he kind of, maybe not in terms of obviously scoring, but in terms of impact and how he's, I think he also has a better team, overall. But yeah, I think, the fact that this team has gotten a lot further, I think you kind of have to at least talk about them in the same breath.
Without a doubt. Right now, one win further with Zion and RJ and that 2019 team bowing out against Michigan State in the Elite Eight game, a loss I'm still not over. And now here we are, Elite Eight win for Cooper Flagg and company to get to this Final Four, and hopefully they've got 2 more wins in front of them. I think for Houston, this is obviously going to be their big focal point, like every single team there. And there's a theory out there that if you're Houston, do we just kind of let Cooper Flagg get his and let everybody else around Duke try to make the plays there. My argument is I think that's impossible because I don't think Cooper Flagg's going to stay in a world where he's just going to want to get his. He takes so much pride in getting other people involved and knows how difficult it is for Duke to be beat when he's able to do those things.
Yeah, I don't think there's any world where Cooper scores 50 points and no one else does. That's just not how he plays. And he's going to draw defenses and he's going to dish. I mean, he's going to do that. That's just part of his DNA. Now, there is a world where he's a little bit too giving. And I think Scheyer has mentioned that they want him to be, more aggressive. And I think he knows the right time to turn it on and when to turn it off. And I think he's going to be just fine in that regard. I don't think Houston can afford to do that.
Would you say Cooper Flagg is the leading scorer in the Final Four game? I'm leaning more Con Knippel, but I'm curious where everybody else is positioned.
I think it's going to end up being Tyrese Proctor.
Okay. I would love that, man. Yeah, just finding shots from the outside with Flagg. Tell me how he gets there.
For me, I think they're going to be paying a lot of attention to Cooper. He's going to be paying a lot of attention to Con. And I think this is where Tyrese is going to flourish. I think he's going to be able to get into those middle area, in the paint and hit those tough twos. And I think as much as we want Duke hitting threes, I think Houston's going to try to take that away. I think, him getting to the lane and finishing is going to be where Duke excels in this game. And I think that in itself is going to open things up for everyone else eventually.
Without a doubt. I'm excited to see the type of impact Malawatch can have as well offensively because we talked about the size advantage that Duke's going to have there on the interior. All right, let's talk Final Four here in San Antonio because first time since 2008 when there were all 1 seeds there. That was a Final Four that ultimately Mario Chalmers hits the big game-winning shot to give Kansas their lone title for the longest of times under head coach Bill Self until 2022 when Duke was also in the Final Four and they were able to get the job done. So looking at that other matchup, Florida and Auburn, an SEC on SEC battle where you saw Florida knock off Auburn, scoring 90-plus inside Neville Arena earlier in the year, which is really hard to do, winning the SEC tournament. But Auburn having the most quad one wins out of anybody in the entire country and kind of running through their competition for a majority of the season.
Yeah, Florida they're just on one of those magical runs. For me, I think they get past Auburn. I think they have the tools, to beat this team. It's going to be close, I think. It's a tough one to call because both teams are mad tough. Both teams have elite shooting. It's going to end up being which team actually shows up on the defensive end, and I think Florida's going to be that team.
So looking at this one, the coaching matchup is always something that I find interesting. And we've been talking this week about the Duke-Houston side of things where Jon Scheyer was just 4 months old when Kelvin Sampson started his coaching career. So much, much different than what we've got in some of these other matchups. The same could be said for Auburn and Florida. We've got Todd Golden leading the Florida Gators at 39 years old to the Final Four. Jon Scheyer at 37 years old. Golden in his 3rd season with the Gators, but he had 3 seasons as a head coach at San Francisco prior to that and was an assistant coach, got his start in college coaching under Bruce Pearl. So got a kind of student versus teacher matchup that we'll see in the first Final Four game of the evening.
It's going to be interesting to see what Golden pulls out. I think he's going to be excited to show Bruce Pearl what new age basketball is all about. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. I can't wait to see what to make of this Duke basketball team. How do you feel? I mean, you could tell me you don't care because I care about the littlest of things in some regards, Brian. Does it matter to you that we're going to be the second game of the night?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I kind of prefer it, honestly.
Yeah, I keep going back and forth, man. There's going to be part of me that's just going to be so frustrated and like, come on, get to the Duke game. But at least at that point, you kind of know who you're playing if you win. It doesn't totally ruin the night when you watch the second basketball game if you were to fall in the first one, of that sort of thing. I'd love to hear what people have to say in the comments below about Duke being the second game of the night there at the Final Four. Brian, so good to see you as always. Tell us about Duke Blogger and ways that people can support you.
Yes, sir. DukeBlogger.com. We do previews of every game. One coming up soon on the Houston matchup. And, follow me on X at Duke Blogger. We'll chat it up. I respond. And, yeah, that's it.
Awesome, man. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
All right, man. Take care.
All right, that's Brian Horace joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Love talking X's and O's with him and breaking down this Final Four game coming up for Duke against Houston. One more day to go until we get to game day on Saturday, Friday, coming your way tomorrow with plenty of content and things to discuss in the world of Duke basketball. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.